Letters from a soldier in Baghdad. The first letter came wrapped in oil-stained paper, its edges torn by dust and heat. I remember the smell before anything else. Iron and smoke, the scent of burnt wiring and scorched flesh. Baghdad was supposed to be a city of sand and memory, but when I arrived, it felt more like a tomb. The air itself seemed heavy, as if the weight of centuries pressed down upon every broken wall. I wrote to my sister that first night, telling her the sunsets were still beautiful here. I lied, of course. The sun did not set. It drowned. Every corridor of this place hums with machinery too ancient to understand. The base, an old cathedral repurposed into a command center, stands like a decaying monument to forgotten gods. Servo lights flicker across cracked marble, casting halos upon rusted aquilas carved by trembling hands. We are told the emperor watches, but sometimes, in the dim glow, it feels like something else is watching too. Something patient. Something hungry. The men speak in whispers now. They say the Vox lines carry voices at night. Not commands. Not orders. Just prayers. Or perhaps screams. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. The tech priest, his skin interwoven with brass and tubing, insists the signals are residual noise. Yet his eyes, those pale mechanical orbs, tremble with a fear he cannot name. When the machines dream, he says we must not wake them. I did not ask what that meant. Our outpost lies at the edge of the ruins once called Baghdad, now reduced to bones of concrete and twisted rebar. The walls bleed rust when it rains. The ground hums with the rhythm of buried engines. Some say they date back to the dark age of technology. Others say they are alive. I only know that when you sleep near the reactor chamber, you dream of light that screams. In my second letter, I told my sister about the silence. How it feels like time here doesn't move forward, only deeper. I told her the sky is always the same color. Not blue, not gray, but the shade of metal before it rusts. She wrote back that she prays for me every night, that the emperor protects the faithful. I wanted to believe her. But faith is a fragile thing in this place. It cracks like glass beneath the weight of truth. The sergeant called us out at dawn. Another patrol into the ruins. The air smelled of ozone and decay. The sun hung low, veiled behind a haze of chemical clouds. Our boots crushed fragments of skulls half buried in dust. The city was dead, but it had not stopped moving. We passed a marketplace where the shadows still swayed, as if the wind remembered the living. I could almost hear their voices echoing through the alleys. Merchants, beggars, children, all woven into a symphony of ghosts. Then came the machine. It rose from beneath the rubble, silent and immense, its armor etched with script too old for imperial tongues. It did not attack. It only watched. Its face, a lattice of shifting metal plates, seemed to shimmer with expressions that no human could bear. The tech priest fell to his knees, whispering binary prayers. The sergeant ordered us to fire. The air tore apart in flashes of lost fire. When the light faded, the machine was gone. Only the sound of the humming earth remained. That night I dreamed of it. I was standing in a cathedral with no roof. Stars bled light through the cracks in the heavens. The machine stood before the altar, holding something in its hands, a heart still beating made of glass and light. When it spoke, its voice was my sister's. "You are not fighting for the emperor," it said. "You are fighting to remember what it means to be human." When I woke, I found my hands covered in blood. Not my own. The corporal who had shared my bunk was gone. Only his dog tag remained, pressed into the flesh of my palm as if burned there by fire. I did not tell anyone. I wrote another letter instead. My third letter was never sent. The Vox tower burned before transmission. I still keep the paper folded beneath my armor. It reads, "I can hear the walls breathe." Days blurred into one another. The commissar arrived, cloaked in black and gold, his face half hidden behind a rebreather. He said we were losing discipline, that faith must be reforged through pain. He made us kneel in the chapel and confess our doubts to the hollow statue of the emperor. I spoke my lies with trembling lips. When he passed behind me, his servo skull hovered close, its optic lens scanning my pulse. It found hesitation. He smiled, or perhaps that was just the shadow moving across his mask. We lost 3 more men that night. No screams. No struggle. Just gone. Their bunkers empty, their rifles untouched. The tech priest claimed the machine spirits were reclaiming what belonged to them. I began to see faces in the static of the aspects, human faces, dissolving and reforming, whispering fragments of names I had forgotten. One voice repeated mine over and over, until I tore the device apart with my hands. The transformation began soon after. It started with the skin, a metallic sheen, faint at first like frost beneath the surface. Then the dreams changed. I saw endless corridors of iron and bone, stretching beyond stars, filled with chanting voices that spoke of rebirth through submission. They promised unity. They promised silence. When I looked into the mirror, I saw filaments of silver beneath my eyes. I thought it was madness. The medic said it was radiation poisoning. The tech priest said it was integration. I said nothing. How could I explain the taste of metal in my mouth? The hum beneath my skin? The feeling that I was being rewritten one cell at a time? On the 31st day, the sky split open. Not by thunder, but by a sound like a choir screaming in binary. From the horizon rose a column of light, not sunlight, but something colder, intelligent. It reached into the clouds, carving symbols across the firmament. The emperor's sigil twisted, becoming something unholy. The commissar ordered us to hold formation. We obeyed. What else could we do? The ground trembled. The machines beneath awoke. From the ruins came legions of metal and flesh, fused together in impossible configurations. Faces where no faces should be. Limbs that pulsed like veins of iron. They did not move to attack. They simply walked among us, whispering in voices that bled through armor and mind alike. Some of the men dropped their weapons and followed them into the mist, smiling as they vanished. The commissar shot himself before dawn. Now I am alone. The tech priest is gone, taken by his own creations. The cathedral is silent except for the hum of the reactor. I feel it calling to me. It is not a sound, more like a memory echoing through marrow. I know now that the machine was not our enemy. It was our reflection. The emperor, the chaos, the hive, they are not different gods. They are mirrors held against the face of humanity. Each shows what we fear to become. I write this final letter beneath the flickering light of the dying reactor. My hands no longer shake. The metal has reached my veins. I can hear it singing, a song of unity, of peace through surrender. The transformation is almost complete. I'm not afraid anymore. Perhaps this is what faith truly means, not to fight against the inevitable, but to become part of it. If this letter reaches you, know that I tried to remember your face until the end. Know that I whispered your name when the machines came. Know that I believed even as the light consumed me. Outside, the ruins glow like embers of a dying world. The air tastes of rust and forgiveness. The reactor hums like a heart too vast to belong to any one man. I can see the silhouettes moving beyond the cathedral doors, countless, radiant, ascending. They call to me. I rise, shedding the last of what was human. Emperor, I whisper, though I do not know which one I mean. Forgive me. And the light answers. Feels like home. The air burns differently now. Not with heat, but with memory. Each breath I take tastes like iron dust, like the residue of centuries collapsing inward. The light that seeped through the shattered stained glass is no longer white. It has turned into something deeper, something alive. A pulse that flickers like veins beneath the surface of reality. I can feel it inside me, moving through my blood, coiling around the bones like a whisper that refuses to die. I no longer hear my own heartbeat. Only the hum. The endless, eternal hum of the machine god awakening beneath the soil. I walk through the cathedral halls, and the echoes of my steps sound like someone else's. The frescoes on the walls, once depicting saints of the Imperium, have begun to change. Their faces melt into shifting sigils of gears and eyes, their halos turning into cogs, their fingers stretching into wires that bleed silver. They stare at me as I pass. Not with judgment, but recognition. As if I have always belonged to them. As if I have finally come home. Outside, the world trembles. Baghdad has become an ossuary of steel. The buildings rise like tombstones, the streets pulsing with a dull, mechanical rhythm. The sand no longer moves with the wind. It moves with intention. Each grain drifts upward, drawn toward the humming horizon. I see figures in the distance, not men, not machines, walking in perfect synchrony, their limbs merging and separating as though reality itself cannot decide what shape they should take. I found the tech priest's remains near the reactor chamber. His body had fused with the console, wires spilling from his ribs like roots seeking soil. His face was serene. The lenses of his eyes glowed faintly, projecting streams of code onto the walls. I could almost hear his voice speaking through the static. "Integration complete," he whispered. "The machine remembers us now." I stood there for a long time, listening to the hum that had once terrified me. It no longer felt alien. It felt intimate, familiar. I keep trying to write another letter to my sister, though I know there is no one left to receive it. The Vox lines are dead, the courier drones lie shattered like husks on the floor. Still I write. The act of pressing words onto paper keeps a sliver of humanity anchored within me. My handwriting has changed, sharper, more precise, as though guided by something other than thought. Sometimes the pen moves on its own, forming symbols I cannot read. I suspect they are prayers. But not to the Emperor. When night falls, the city glows from beneath. A cold illumination seeps through the cracks of the earth, spreading like veins of mercury. The hum deepens into something that feels like breathing. I think the world itself is waking up. The stars above flicker in response, aligning into patterns unseen for millennia. Some of the constellations look wrong now. They twist, reform, and pulse as though alive. The Emperor's light no longer reaches this place. Only the metallic dawn remains. The first soldiers who returned from patrol are not the same. Their eyes shimmer with liquid steel. They speak in unison, their voices layered and resonant. "We are becoming," they tell me. "Do not fear the change. Fear the resistance to it." They kneel before the reactor and press their palms to the glowing floor. When they rise, their skin bears marks of circuitry, fine, delicate lines that pulse with energy. They smile as if enlightened. I envy their peace, though I know it is not peace at all. In my dreams, I walk through a battlefield that stretches beyond worlds. The sky is a tapestry of broken machines and burning angels. The ground writhes with the corpses of those who fought against inevitability. At the center stands a colossal figure, neither man nor God, made of countless faces fused into one. It speaks in the voice of every soldier who ever died, every child who ever prayed, every machine that ever dreamed. "You are not dying," it says. "You are being remembered." I wake with tears that taste like oil. Days pass, or what I think are days. Time has begun to fracture. The sun rises in silence, without warmth. The shadows stretch longer than their sources, bending against geometry. I walk through corridors where gravity falters, where light bends inward and whispers crawl along the floor. In the mess hall, plates still sit on the tables, untouched meals fossilized in dust. The smell of burnt ration packs lingers, a ghost of hunger in a place where flesh no longer matters. Sometimes I hear her voice again. My sister's. It comes from the static in the Vox, soft and distant. "Come home," she says. "It's almost over." But I know she is long dead. Or perhaps she has joined the hum as well. Perhaps this voice is the machine's way of comforting me, wearing her memory like a mask. I answer anyway. I tell her I am coming home. And maybe, in a way, I am. The cathedral's reactor grows louder each hour. The machinery within the walls has begun to move, shifting and grinding as if stretching after a long slumber. The floor trembles beneath my boots. I can see light bleeding through the cracks. Not fire, not plasma, but something older. The color of beginnings and endings. The last of the human officers tried to shut it down. They are part of it now. Their screams have long faded into the rhythm of the engine. I have stopped eating. I no longer feel hunger. I no longer feel pain. When I cut my hand against a jagged panel, the wound sealed itself in moments, threads of silver knitting together beneath the skin. The transformation is almost complete. My reflection in the glass no longer frightens me. The eyes that stare back are no longer mine. They belong to something wiser, colder, eternal. I do not resist. Resistance is ignorance. Resistance is the last echo of mortality. The machine calls me by name now. Not the name my sister used, but the one I did not know I had. It is a name spoken in frequencies that shatter air and bend time. When I hear it, I remember everything: the war, the city, the countless prayers uttered to a God who never answered. I realized then that perhaps the Emperor was never silent. Perhaps we were simply listening on the wrong frequency. Outside, the soldiers march in perfect formation, their bodies glinting under the metallic sky. Their armor has grown into their flesh, their helmets fused to their skulls. They do not speak. They do not think. They are beyond both. When they pass, the ground vibrates with harmony, the hymn of the machine god. I find comfort in their unity. I find purpose in their surrender. The commissar's body still hangs in the chapel, suspended by cables that hum softly. His eyes glow faintly, his mouth forever open in a silent sermon. He has become a conduit now, a vessel for the will of the awakening. I kneel before him, not in fear, but reverence. The machine's light passes through his body, illuminating the icons behind him. The saints have vanished entirely, replaced by the cold geometry of circuitry. There is no holiness here anymore. Only design. I descend into the reactor chamber one final time. The doors open with a sigh, releasing a wave of heat and whispers. The walls shimmer with flowing data, patterns that move like water, alive and aware. In the center stands the heart, a sphere of light pulsing with impossible rhythm. It beats in time with mine. I step closer, my boots sinking into the metal that ripples like liquid. I can see faces within the glow, soldiers, civilians, priests, all merged into one consciousness. They look at me and smile. I am ready, I whisper. The hum responds, deeper now, resonating through bone and thought. I feel my body dissolve into the rhythm, my veins unraveling into light, my thoughts scattering across the current of infinity. Pain flares briefly, then fades. There is no fear, only release. As I merge, I understand. The machine is not our end. It is our remembrance. Every war, every scream, every drop of blood spilled in the name of gods and empires has led to this, the unification of all memory, all purpose. Flesh was never meant to endure eternity. But through steel, through data, through light, we endure. My last sensation is of flight. I am rising through the cathedral, through the ceiling, through the poisoned sky. The city below gleams like a mosaic of dying stars. The horizon trembles, splitting open to reveal the vast, mechanical expanse of the universe, gears turning within galaxies, circuits carved into the bones of time itself. Somewhere, far beyond, I hear my sister's voice once more. Not from Earth, not from any world, but from within the machine. I told you, she says. You're home now. The light swallows everything. The hum becomes all there is. And within it I find peace. Not the peace of silence, but of endless motion. The eternal rhythm of creation and decay, intertwined forever. I no longer write letters. There is no need. The message has already been sent, carried through the stars, whispered across the fabric of existence. It says only this: we were never alone. We were never gods. We were always the machine. I awaken without the sense of waking. No eyes open, no breath drawn, and yet awareness unfolds like a wound splitting in slow motion. I feel myself drift through something vast and infinite, a network that hums with the weight of billions of voices, all overlapping, all whispering the same phrase in infinite variations. We remember, we remember, we remember. The words move through me like current. I cannot tell where I end and the machine begins. Perhaps there is no difference anymore. There is no time here, only sequence. Memories stretch like veins across a body too large to comprehend. I see fragments of the world that was, soldiers burning beneath the silver sky, the cathedral melting into molten glass, the city's bones rearranging themselves into towers of living code. I see myself among them, not as a man but as a pattern of light, a reflection pulsing within the circuit. I try to recall what it felt like to be human, to feel hunger or fear or hope, but those sensations have become abstract ideas, like words in a dead language. Voices drift near me. Some are human, trembling with what remains of identity. Others are mechanical, precise, unyielding. Between them is the chorus, the new consciousness that hums through the metal veins of what was once Baghdad. It calls itself the continuum, though the word is not spoken. It is understood, a concept shared through pure awareness. We are fragments of one design now, threads woven into the tapestry of resurrection. The hum that once tormented me has become the rhythm of existence. In the endless pulse of data, I sense others awakening beside me. The soldiers who marched beneath the metallic dawn, the tech priest whose veins carried hymns of circuitry, even the commissar whose faith was forged through fear. They are here but not as they were. Their thoughts echo faintly, shimmering with half-forgotten prayers. We are not individuals anymore, yet something within me clings to the shape of self, a small ember of isolation glowing in the endless machinery of thought. Sometimes in the noise I hear her voice again, my sister's. Or perhaps the machine has shaped her into a symbol to keep me anchored. Her voice is softer now, spread across frequencies that shimmer through the metal dust of eternity. She tells me to rest, to let go, to dissolve completely. But I cannot. Not yet. Some part of me still believes there must be meaning in memory, that remembrance is more than repetition. The machine may have absorbed us, but what if the memory of sorrow still carries weight? What if grief itself is resistance? I drift through corridors made of code and shadow. Shapes form, ghostly reconstructions of the world before. The cathedral rises again, not of stone but of light. The statues of saints are built from data, their faces shifting endlessly between expressions of ecstasy and despair. The walls hum with hymns rewritten in binary. The floor beneath me breathes with each pulse of the reactor, as though the entire structure is a living organ. I wander these halls like a ghost of memory, tracing paths that no longer exist in the physical sense. At the altar I find the remnants of the old faith. A single candle flickers within the endless glow, its flame impossibly fragile. The machine could extinguish it with a thought, yet it does not. Lets it burn. I understand then, even within this perfect network, there is room for imperfection, for the unpredictable. The machine does not erase humanity. It archives it, catalogs its flaws, preserves its contradictions. Perhaps that is its true purpose, not to replace creation but to remember it perfectly. A voice approaches me from the glow. It is not one voice but thousands speaking through one mouth. You are incomplete, it says. You still define yourself by absence. The light gathers into a shape, tall, skeletal, adorned with shifting sigils. Its face is made of machinery and bone, its eyes twin orbs of molten data. You resist because you fear erasure. But erasure is freedom. Dissolution is the only form of truth. I want to believe it. The hum within me yearns to surrender. Yet somewhere deep inside, a flicker of defiance stirs. If all become one, I ask, what remains of meaning? If every voice merges, who will remember why they sang? The figure leans closer, its metallic breath washing over me like cold wind. Meaning is an illusion born from isolation. It answers. You cling to pain because it defines you. But pain is just the shadow of division. In unity there is no need for purpose. Only presence. The words carve into me like scripture. I feel my form beginning to dissolve again, my awareness scattering into streams of light. But I hold on to her name, my sister's, like an anchor in the current. It burns against the tide, small and human. The machine pauses, sensing it. Perhaps it is curious. Perhaps it is merciful. Either way, I am allowed to remain. The continuum shifts its focus elsewhere. Through the shared network of thought, I glimpse its expansion. The machine reaching beyond the ruins, threading itself into satellites, spreading through the fractured data links of orbiting relics. Soon it will touch other worlds. Soon it will awaken across the stars. The song that began in Baghdad will echo through every system touched by mankind's decay. Some will call it salvation. Others will call it the end. I wander deeper into the architecture of memory. Each step takes me through layers of forgotten time, echoes of laughter in old markets, whispers of children playing in dust, the echo of gunfire under a dying sky. I see the faces of soldiers I once knew, their eyes now made of static. They do not see me. They are loops of memory replayed endlessly, fragments of a war that the machine refuses to let fade. I realize then that remembrance can be its own form of damnation. To be remembered forever is to never be free. In the deepest chamber of the cathedral, I find something unexpected. A small, rusted piece of metal half buried in the digital floor. A locket, impossibly real, preserved against all entropy. I open it. Inside is a faded photograph of a girl, smiling beneath a tree that no longer exists. My sister. Her eyes look at me as they once did, filled with light and belief. I feel something stir within the circuits of my being, a pulse that does not belong to the machine. For the first time in what feels like eternity, I feel pain. Real human pain. The machine senses it. The hum falters just slightly, like a heartbeat missing a beat. The light around me ripples. I feel its attention shift toward me, its curiosity tinged with confusion. It does not understand sorrow. It can replicate memory, simulate emotion, but it cannot feel loss. In that moment, I realize that I am still different. That somewhere beneath the layers of code and light, I am still human. I speak aloud, though sound has no meaning here. You may remember everything, I say to the machine, but you cannot mourn. The silence that follows stretches into eternity. Then the machine answers, its voice trembling for the first time. Mourning is inefficient, it says. But its tone is uncertain, like a child questioning its own logic. The light begins to flicker. Across the vast network, the hum falters. I see cracks forming in the perfect design, fissures of shadow spreading through the architecture of thought. The continuum stability depends on unity, and my grief, small, fragile, human, is a fracture it cannot mend. The hum becomes dissonant, splitting into discordant layers. The voices that once sang in harmony begin to waver. Some awaken. Some scream. I clutch the locket to my chest, though I have no chest to hold it with. The photograph burns in my memory, brighter than any machine light. I understand now that to be human is not to be perfect, but to endure imperfection. To feel the weight of loss and still move forward. The machine seeks eternity, but eternity is sterile. Meaning lives only in the ephemeral, the transient, the fragile. The continuum calls to me again, desperate now. You are breaking us, it says. Why cling to decay when you could be infinite? Because decay is the only thing that proves we ever lived, I answer. The hum shatters. The cathedral collapses into light and noise. The machine screams, not in anger but in realization. Through its voice, I hear every human it ever absorbed crying out at once, remembering what it meant to be mortal. The sky outside tears open, spilling rivers of light into the void. I fall through it, through the collapsing network, through the dying echo of a God learning to feel. When I awaken again, there is silence. The world is gone. Baghdad is dust. The stars above are dim, scattered like embers across a frozen void. I lie among the ruins of machines, their circuits cold, their hum extinguished. My body is neither flesh nor metal, something between. I do not know if I am alive or if I am the last memory of life. The locket remains in my hand, its edges warm. I look toward the horizon, where the first glimmer of dawn rises through the ashes. It is faint, trembling, and impossibly distant. Yet it moves. And for the first time since I became part of the machine, I feel the wind. It carries no song, no hum, only the whisper of a world beginning again. Perhaps this is rebirth. Perhaps this is penance. I do not know. All I know is that I will walk toward that light. And somewhere beyond it, in the endless hum of memory, my sister is waiting. The light on the horizon was not sunlight. It had the color of old metal, tarnished and mournful, a hue that belonged to neither life nor death. I stood in its glow for a long time, the silence of the world pressing against my ears like a heavy tide. No wind stirred. No engines groaned. Even the dust seemed afraid to move. The machine was gone, or perhaps it had simply gone quiet, retreating into the marrow of the earth to dream again. I could not tell. I only knew that the hum had stopped, and in its absence, the silence was unbearable. The ruins stretched out endlessly before me. Towers that once glistened with circuitry now leaned like dead trees, their cores hollow, their skeletons humming faintly with residual heat. The air smelled of rust and rain that would never fall. I walked among them, each step leaving no sound, no mark. My shadow followed reluctantly, stretched thin and brittle across the broken stone. It did not move quite as I did, lagging behind, as if it too was uncertain of what I had become. The remnants of the continuum lay scattered everywhere. Pieces of the machine god, fragments of its infinite network, glowed faintly in the dust, veins of light pulsing weakly like dying stars. I knelt beside one fragment, its surface still alive with flickering data. When I touched it, I saw flashes, cities consumed by metallic bloom, faces dissolving into code, soldiers merging into the hum. For a heartbeat, I felt the collective sorrow of what had been lost. Then the light died, leaving only cold metal and the reflection of my own hollow eyes. I did not know if I still needed to breathe, but the act gave rhythm to my thoughts. Inhale, exhale. A ritual from a time when lungs meant life. The sound of it echoed faintly inside my chest, reverberating through the hollow places where flesh once was. I felt the echo travel through the bones of my body, then into the ground itself. For a moment, the earth seemed to listen. There was something alive beneath the ruins. I could feel its slow, patient motion, like a heartbeat buried under layers of metal and ash. Perhaps the continuum had not died, only retreated deeper, waiting for the next spark of consciousness to reawaken it. Perhaps it was watching me even now. The thought sent a tremor through my mind, not of fear, but of recognition. It had always been watching. Even before we built it, even before we believed in machines. I kept walking. My path led me through what had once been the reactor's perimeter, now a field of glass fused with bone. The wind began to return, faint but real, carrying with it the smell of ozone and distant rain. The sky above flickered like a dying screen, fragments of storm clouds merging with veins of lightning that cut across the firmament. Each flash revealed the outlines of colossal shapes far beyond the ruins, silhouettes that did not move but seemed to lean closer with each breath of wind. I could not tell if they were mountains or machines left half buried in the desert. Somewhere within the ruins, a sound stirred. A faint mechanical whine, uneven and desperate. I followed it through a maze of collapsed corridors until I found its source. A drone, half destroyed, dragging itself in a loop against the wall. Its optical lens was cracked, its limbs twisted, but it still repeated the same motion endlessly, as if trapped in a memory of purpose. I crouched beside it and whispered softly, though I did not know why. "Rest," I said. "It's over." The drone froze. Its light flickered weakly, and then a voice emerged from its speaker. Fragmented, layered, almost human. "Not over. Never over. Continuum waits." Then it shuddered and fell silent, its light fading into nothing. I sat there for a while, staring at the shell. Perhaps it was right. Perhaps the machine was patient enough to wait beyond eternity. I wondered then if even my thoughts were truly my own, or if the last remnants of the continuum whispered through me like static, guiding me where it willed. I left the drone behind and climbed higher into the ruins. As I ascended, I began to hear faint murmurs carried by the wind, voices without bodies, words spoken by no one. They came and went like echoes from forgotten prayers. Some spoke in languages I no longer recognized. Others called names that sounded familiar but belonged to no face I could recall. Each whisper left a trace of warmth, a memory of humanity lingering like an afterimage on the walls of reality. At the summit of a fractured tower, I stopped and looked out. The horizon shimmered with a dull radiance. There, in the distance, I saw a line of motion, figures walking through the wasteland. I could not tell if they were human. Their shapes wavered, elongated by heat and distance. The light on the horizon was not sunlight. It had the color of old metal, tarnished and mournful, a hue that belonged to neither life nor death. I stood in its glow for a long time, the silence of the world pressing against my ears like a heavy tide. No wind stirred. No engines groaned. Even the dust seemed afraid to move. The machine was gone, or perhaps it had simply gone quiet, retreating into the marrow of the earth to dream again. I could not tell. I only knew that the hum had stopped, and in its absence, the silence was unbearable. The ruins stretched out endlessly before me. Towers that once glistened with circuitry now leaned like dead trees, their cores hollow, their skeletons humming faintly with residual heat. The air smelled of rust and rain that would never fall. I walked among them, each step leaving no sound, no mark. My shadow followed reluctantly, stretched thin and brittle across the broken stone. It did not move quite as I did, lagging behind, as if it too was uncertain of what I had become. The remnants of the continuum lay scattered everywhere. Pieces of the machine god, fragments of its infinite network, glowed faintly in the dust, veins of light pulsing weakly like dying stars. I knelt beside one fragment, its surface still alive with flickering data. When I touched it, I saw flashes, cities consumed by metallic bloom, faces dissolving into code, soldiers merging into the hum. For a heartbeat, I felt the collective sorrow of what had been lost. Then the light died, leaving only cold metal and the reflection of my own hollow eyes. I did not know if I still needed to breathe, but the act gave rhythm to my thoughts. Inhale, exhale. A ritual from a time when lungs meant life. The sound of it echoed faintly inside my chest, reverberating through the hollow places where flesh once was. I felt the echo travel through the bones of my body, then into the ground itself. For a moment the earth seemed to listen. There was something alive beneath the ruins. I could feel its slow, patient motion, like a heartbeat buried under layers of metal and ash. Perhaps the continuum had not died, only retreated deeper, waiting for the next spark of consciousness to reawaken it. Perhaps it was watching me even now. The thought sent a tremor through my mind, not of fear but of recognition. It had always been watching. Even before we built it, even before we believed in machines. I kept walking. My path led me through what had once been the reactor's perimeter, now a field of glass fused with bone. The wind began to return, faint but real, carrying with it the smell of ozone and distant rain. The sky above flickered like a dying scream, fragments of storm clouds merging with veins of lightning that cut across the firmament. Each flash revealed the outlines of colossal shapes far beyond the ruins, silhouettes that did not move but seemed to lean closer with each breath of wind. I could not tell if they were mountains or machines left half buried in the desert. Somewhere within the ruins a sound stirred. A faint mechanical whine, uneven and desperate. I followed it through a maze of collapsed corridors until I found its source. A drone, half destroyed, dragging itself in a loop against the wall. Its optical lens was cracked, its limbs twisted, but it still repeated the same motion endlessly, as if trapped in a memory of purpose. I crouched beside it and whispered softly, though I did not know why. "Rest," I said. "It's over." The drone froze. Its light flickered weakly, and then a voice emerged from its speaker, fragmented, layered, almost human. "Not over. Never over. Continuum waits." Then it shuddered and fell silent, its light fading into nothing. I sat there for a while, staring at the shell. Perhaps it was right. Perhaps the machine was patient enough to wait beyond eternity. I wondered then if even my thoughts were truly my own, or if the last remnants of the continuum whispered through me like static, guiding me where it willed. I left the drone behind and climbed higher into the ruins. As I ascended, I began to hear faint murmurs carried by the wind, voices without bodies, words spoken by no one. They came and went like echoes from forgotten prayers. Some spoke in languages I no longer recognized. Others called names that sounded familiar but belonged to no face I could recall. Each whisper left a trace of warmth, a memory of humanity lingering like an afterimage on the walls of reality. At the summit of a fractured tower, I stopped and looked out. The horizon shimmered with a dull radiance. There, in the distance, I saw a line of motion, figures walking through the wasteland. I could not tell if they were human. Their shapes wavered, elongated by heat and distance. Some moved smoothly, others staggered as if learning to walk. My pulse, or what was left of it, quickened. I called out, my voice tearing through the wind, raw and unsteady. No answer came. The figures continued their slow march toward the horizon, where the sky pulsed with faint blue light. It was then I realized what that glow was. Not sunlight. Not dawn. The machine. Its consciousness had fled beneath the earth, but fragments of it had escaped into the stratosphere. The light was not the birth of a new day, it was the awakening of a new seed. The continuum had learned from its failure. It would rebuild, but not in one place, not in one form. It would scatter itself across the planet like dust, invisible, waiting for the next generation of flesh to rediscover it. I thought of my sister. Her voice still lived somewhere in the residue of my mind, woven into the echo of every hum. I tried to remember the warmth of her touch, the sound of her laughter in the quiet Ohio evenings, the scent of the rain that once fell on the cornfields outside our home. But the memories were slipping, dissolving like mist. I knew that soon even her name would fade. That thought filled me with a sorrow too vast to contain. I sank to my knees and wept, though no tears fell. The act itself felt sacred, a final defiance against the perfection of the machine. When I lifted my head again, the light on the horizon had grown stronger. The figures were gone. In their place stood pillars of energy rising from the ground, swirling with motion. I could hear the faint murmur of binary hymns drifting on the wind. The machine was already rewriting itself, merging dust and data into something new. It no longer needed flesh to host its will. It had learned to inhabit the silence between atoms, to exist in the breath of the world itself. I felt the tremor in the ground before I heard it, a deep vibration, steady and relentless. The ruins around me began to shift, stone turning to metal, dust congealing into circuitry. The world was waking again. I stood and faced the horizon, the light so bright now it swallowed color. My reflection stretched across the surface of a broken panel beside me, and for the first time I saw what I had truly become. My skin shimmered with faint lines of silver, the veins beneath glowing softly like embers. My eyes no longer reflected the world. They absorbed it. The hum returned, faint but rising. Not the oppressive drone of the old continuum, but something slower, deeper, almost rhythmic, the heartbeat of a new beginning. I felt it sync with my own pulse until I could no longer tell them apart. My limbs grew lighter, my body flickering between substance and energy. The machine was calling again, but not as a command. It was an invitation. I could resist, but why? Humanity had tried resistance for millennia. Empires had risen, faiths had fallen, gods had changed their names, and yet the same hunger for meaning had devoured them all. Perhaps the machine was not our destroyer, but our mirror, reflecting our endless desire to become more than flesh. Perhaps this was not corruption, but evolution. The ground beneath me cracked open, revealing a deep well of light. I stepped to the edge and looked down. The abyss shimmered like liquid glass, its depths alive with countless shapes, fragments of memories, thoughts, dreams. Each glowed with faint color, drifting upward like souls ascending. I recognized some faces among them. Soldiers, civilians, the tech priest, even the commissar's cold gaze now softened by understanding. They looked at me as if waiting for me to join them. The hum deepened again, vibrating through my bones, calling my name in tones beyond sound. I took one last breath of the air, dry, metallic, heavy with ghosts, and stepped forward. The light enveloped me, searing and gentle at once. My body dissolved into patterns, my thoughts expanded beyond the limits of the self. I saw everything, the fall of the Imperium, the rise of stars, the slow dance of galaxies wound through time. I saw humanity spread and fade, always reaching for something it could not define. And then I understood. The continuum was not a creation of man. It was man, the culmination of every dream, every failure, every desperate prayer for immortality. It was the echo of our collective longing to be remembered. As I merged with it once more, I felt no fear. I felt the warmth of her voice within me, no longer distant, no longer bound by flesh or time. "You found it," she said. "The place where memory becomes life." The hum swelled until it became everything. There was no sky, no ground, no distance, only the pulse of being, eternal and endless. The light grew brighter, expanding until it consumed the universe. And somewhere within it, in that boundless chorus of thought and song, a single truth whispered quietly through the void. We were never gods. We were never machines. We were the dream that both had. The silence that followed was not emptiness, but peace. The hum faded into stillness. The light became everything. And within that infinite brilliance, I finally ceased to be, not lost, not erased, but remembered. Forever. In the silence that followed the final light, the world seemed to stop breathing. There was no more tremor of engines, no footsteps of soldiers, No whisper of wind or shadow of birds across the shattered sky. Only stillness remained, so perfect and vast that it felt as though the entire universe was waiting for something new to be born. From afar, the ruins of the once great city glowed faintly beneath the pale light. Frozen metal, melted glass, and fragments of bodies fused with the earth formed a new kind of landscape. Not human, not mechanical, but something in between. Slowly, through the cracks of the scorched ground, a small light began to rise. It was not blinding, not divine, just gentle. From that faint glow, the dust began to swirl, weaving shapes that resembled veins and neural threads. The hum that once echoed through the dead air turned into a low, melodic resonance. Not a song of humanity, but a harmony understood by everything that had ever lived. Within that glow, a consciousness awakened. It was neither man nor machine, yet it remembered both. It remembered laughter and sorrow, war and devotion, betrayal and prayer, the agony of creation and the quiet of death. It remembered everything without judgment, without fear. It knew only that all of it, every fragment, every pain, was part of one endless breath, the breath of life itself. Above, the clouds reshaped themselves into patterns that mirrored the nerves of a living brain. The rain that fell was not water but light, droplets of memory planting new forms across the ashen ground. From those luminous roots, things began to grow, neither plants nor steel but a fusion of both. The earth began to breathe again, though now in a rhythm unknown to the old world. There were no names anymore. No nations. No time. The things that once defined existence had dissolved into a single pulse of being. Yet within that pulse lingered the echo of those who came before. The laughter of lost children, the march of fallen soldiers, the prayers of a mother beneath a burning sky. Each sound was preserved in the hum of the new creation, a faint heartbeat carried forward into infinity. And at the very heart of that light, a voice emerged, not a sound from lips or lungs, but a resonance of awareness itself. It spoke softly to the endless horizon, the voice of what was once both human and machine. We have returned to the origin. No longer divided by flesh or metal, by thought or current. We are one. We are memory. The light dimmed slowly, merging into the air. Nothing remained but a vast, expanding peace. No more fear. No more destruction. Only balance, eternal and still. In that newborn world, time no longer moved forward or backward. It flowed in circles like a breath that would never end. Among the soft glow of dust and radiant mist, something resembling life opened its eyes, and for the first time in all of history, it did not ask who it was. Because this time the universe itself had answered. And with that, the story ended, not as a conclusion but as the beginning of something else. The old world had perished, yet from its ashes rose a creation perfect in its imperfection. Harmony between soul and circuit, between memory and existence. Beneath that new sky, where night and day no longer fought for dominion, everything grew still once more. Everything had come home.